This is abs. This is the part where you say this is John. John, you get
Oh, really?
this is what we
Oh, I thought you
discussed.
were gonna continue.
No, I'm not
No,
gonna say
I
this
oh,
is
I thought you
abs.
were gonna do like a spiel about yourself.
This is abs.
Oh, you don't need to start over or
Oh my
anything?
god, this is no. I
Wow,
don't.
I'm totally messing you up.
I don't know if that's intentional or not. That was hilarious. Um, okay, well, this is abs,
This is John.
and this is Alien and the
Wait, can I do
Jester.
that again? This is actually kind of hard.
This is abs with my co-host John, and this is Alien and the Jester, episode 3. How are you, John?
I am doing really well. Thank you for that intro. So yeah, we're on episode 3.
I can't
It's
believe it.
freaking amazing.
I'm gonna stop
So
saying that. I'm gonna stop saying that. Like, sounds so incredulous because I really do feel that way. But we should act professional from now on.
wait, so you're saying I can't call people snake oil salesmen?
No, that is okay
Okay,
as long
because I
as
was I was
you're
going
doing
to.
it.
Actually, did you see the Bitcoin movement, the crypto movement today?
Oh my god! I mean, it's been going on for the last week or two, where this downturn. I mean, uh, I know with Doge there was their car lost, so they took a huge downfall, and they broke through one of their supports.
Oh yeah, so yep, supports. I will agree with the terminology.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to our first episode, support and resistance lines are somewhat of difficult terms for John, but it definitely went down considerably in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I don't know if there's gonna be any stoppage. Like China is just continuing to ramp up their
Yep.
regulations on it, and the El Salvador thing. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like people are kind of paying attention to it, but it's like El Salvador. If you really look at it relative to like all the other countries,
Hmm.
it's kind of like the country that doesn't have a lot of like say. So
Hmm.
it's like convincing. I don't know.
Yeah. The news hasn't been great. I'm sure we'll cover it a little bit deeper. We'll do some good research. I think things are still going on, so it would be kind of weird to comment too much on it because honestly, I don't see. I think it's going to keep going down for a little bit. I think at least Doge hit a new support level, and I think it's going to stabilize at some around. I think last I checked, it was like 0.19. This is being recorded on the 21st at night. Um,
Yeah,
and
it's
I
like
think,
around 19 cents or something right
is
now.
it 19? Okay, yeah. So it's 19 cents now. It's crazy. I think only what a week ago it was like a 30. It was stabilizing around there, and then a huge downfall kind of started yesterday. I think the big one started yesterday, but it had been kind of going down the last week or two.
We'll see how it goes, but I feel like this kind of momentum is going to reveal more of like what was talked about the first episode too about Tether. Like more and more people, because it's like the climate is not great right now.
Hmm.
More people are going to see like, oh, Tether is not just FUD. Like maybe there's something to it, and I don't know. I don't remember, but in the first episode, I was saying like by December, like price
By December,
targets. I
yeah,
mean, I'm thinking like 20s. Um,
20s, yeah.
yeah,
But
we
we
might not
did,
even need December.
yeah. And the one thing we did say was we were both a lot more bullish on Doge. I don't think either of us could predict this downfall this bad. I knew that it was going to go down a little bit more, but I didn't think it was going to break the 0.25. But with the recent happenings, it's not too surprising, but I still think it will rebound a little bit over this current 0.19 value. But the one thing that we were talking about, Elon's power over crypto in general, is waning. it's waning. He no longer has the same pull as the Doge father anymore, I think.
Mm, the boy who cried Doge.
The boy who cried Doge. I do think it again, it will rebound, and when it's rebounding, it will have a lot of celebrities and analysts saying, yeah, Doge is going, they're gonna try to profit on whatever is going on. So, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. So something else that so we have some viewers, and one viewer actually, Chris.
Yeah.
He
Shout out
has
to Chris, by the way.
yes.
Shout out.
Thank you for listening to us ramble.
Hmm.
Uh, so something that he actually brought up when in the second episode when we were kind of talking about like anime and also like storytelling as an art form and also kind of like the machine behind Marvel. We called it like Marvel Movie
Mm.
Maker. So
Well,
he
you called it Marvel Movie Maker, but all right.
Chris actually shared a really interesting excerpt from a recent book called Amazon Unbound
Hmm.
with me, and I think you're gonna love this.
Okay.
So basically, the Amazon Unbound it's kind of like a book that goes into Amazon's like inner workings and reveals more about like how Jeff Bezos functions
Mm.
in the workplace environment. How like it's kind of like a biography of Jeff Bezos in a way. And there's actually one excerpt that I thought was really interesting. I guess the setting is Bezos and a bunch of like executives are
Hmm.
in a boardroom, and they're basically talking about how they can increase the quality of content coming, like media content coming out of Amazon, like movies, TV, and I'm just gonna read it.
Okay.
So after more debate, Bezos boiled it down. Look, I know what it takes to make a great show. This should not be that hard. All of these iconic shows have basic things in common. And you're going to love this. This is like the highlight. And off the top of his head, displaying his characteristic ability to shift disciplines multiple times a day, then reduce complex issues down to their most essential essence, he started to reel off the ingredients of epic storytelling. So number one is like a bullet points. Number
Okay.
one is, and this is
I'm writing.
from Bezos.
I'm writing things down. By the way.
This is Bezos. Like what? This is why he is America's top entrepreneur. This guy is a genius. Number
Lex
one,
Luthor. Yes.
a heroic protagonist who experiences growth and change. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, a compelling antagonist. Three, wish fulfillment. E.g., for example, the protagonist has hidden abilities such as superpowers or magic. Damn, this Bezos guy, like he's gonna make it. He's gonna make it big. Like I can tell. Number four, moral choices. That's it. Next one is diverse world building. In parentheses, different geographic landscapes. Next is urgency to watch next episode. In parentheses, cliffhangers. It gets better. It gets better. Next is civilizational high stakes, a global threat to humanity like an alien invasion,
Oh
and then
Jesus.
dash dash, or a devastating pandemic. I can imagine Bezos like winking to the rest of
Yeah.
his
Oh yeah.
board members while he's doing this. Okay, and this one, this is just such a banger. Like I don't know how Bezos thought of this, but this is why. This is why he is the richest man in America. The next bullet point is humor. Next one is
Wait, that's it.
yes, that's it. That was it. That was it. He just said humor, humor. Guys. Storytelling is not that hard. You just need humor. Next is betrayal,
Oh.
and next one. There's more. There's more that makes a good story. Surprisingly, positive emotions. In parentheses, love, joy, hope.
Sex. Oh. Oh. Oh yes. Yes.
And all right, next one. There's another one. Negative emotions, loss, sorrow. And there's one more.
Sex.
There's one more banger.
Oh.
This Bezos guy. I don't know how he does it. Violence. Th- th-
So he has betrayal and violence, but they're not part of the negative emotions. They're specific.
so this yeah, this guy, like, I don't know how he does it. He knows everything. Like, he has nailed it. Like, this is exactly what makes a good story. Like,
I
I'm just
think the thing is, okay, so this is a great. So if you take the hero's journey, so in you, I know you know about this.
like Joseph
The
Campbell's um
was it Joseph Campbell? I forgot. I know. Yes, it was Joseph Campbell. Yeah, it was. I think popularized by him. I know Carl Jung had something to do with it too. But yeah,
yes.
you know exactly what I'm talking about. The hero. The Star Wars is a great analogy to it. You know, Luke, he gets called to adventure by Obi-Wan, and then he has he's not sure about it because he's about to enter a completely unknown world, and then he goes through it. He has a and then Obi-Wan was the mentor to him, and then something really big happens. That's
Yep.
they call it the rebirth. He transforms, he atones for his mistakes, blah blah blah, and then he comes back, and then that's the hero's journey. He comes back to the to his known place. That's the hero journey. That's how you write. This what Jeff Bezos is putting down is what you do after watching Game of Thrones or something. What made it good? Yeah, and then you just write down a few things and you try to put him in.
Right.
It's interesting. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. But if you think of it that way, it's not really deconstructing anything. The hero journey is a deconstruction. That's where you see, okay, what makes a story a good story, and then people have done variations of the hero's journey. What he's just saying is just the tropes that work well, which isn't wrong. He could put him in any show that he writes, and it would be a banger. But just saying humor as the eighth bullet point, was it? Yeah,
Yeah,
well, yes, Mr. Bezos, that's true. You could put humor in that would make it great, but how do you do that?
exactly.
That's the biggest hurdle. Just it's like saying, hey, basketball's easy. Just be 7 foot tall and put the ball in the basket.
Be athletic.
Be athletic.
Oh
Be a
yeah,
LeBron.
exactly. It's like a NBA GM saying, "Look, I know what it takes to build a great team." And one bullet point is LeBron level player. There you go. I just solved it. And he's like
That's
yelling
it.
at his
That's it.
managers. Yeah, find me this. Find me this bullet point. LeBron level player.
And then that's it. Then you'll have a championship team. Interesting. Oh my god. First of all, shout out to Chris again. That is such an awesome suggestion. My god.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking, like, this is just such arrogance. Like, for him
Hmm.
to actually try to boil something as complex as like storytelling down. And I look, like, I have nothing against people, as you said, like hero's journey,
Hmm.
wonderful way to kind of parameterize like a very complex subject such as storytelling, like giving it some sort of structure where,
Hmm.
as you said, Luke, he is in a stable place, and then he goes into an unstable place because he is facing challenges, and he grows through those challenges, and eventually he comes back to equilibrium. And Kurt Vonnegut, he's another American author who
Convia.
actually put structure of into stories, and he kind of graphed it actually, where if you imagine like
Hmm.
the x-axis being the time in the
Hmm.
story, like zero is like the beginning, and like infinity is the end of the book, and the y-axis is the sentiment, overall sentiment of the story. They're actually kind of like sine and cosine curves that you can get from the most popular stories,
Wow.
yeah, of like ancient history, even like the great myths, like great Greek myths, like they all kind of conform to these like sine or cosine curves, and it's very interesting to look at. And I think we kind of like touched on it in a previous episode where I said that I can kind of show that School of Rock is actually just Cinderella.
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they follow a very similar sentiment graph. And if you want to kind of dive deeper into this, I think you can Google Kurt Vonnegut "Shape of Stories." It's I think it
Okay.
was his like college thesis or something. Very compelling. So I'm totally all for that, like trying to put structure onto complex things. But the way Bezos says, like, look, I know what it takes to make a great show. This should not be that hard. And one of his bullet points is humor. Like, dude, like humor itself is a complex subject, and it's funny that Bezos says that because Bezos is like the least humorous person like living. That guy is like not funny at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think if Bezos I'm actually pretty sure if you made Bezos like kind of trained to be like a stand-up comedian, he would find that humor is not that easy. The same way LeBron level player is not that easy to
Not that
just
easy.
do. It's like very
Mm-hmm.
easy to say like, oh yeah, just add some humor in there. No, I don't know about that. Like, and also violence. That this is such a
Just,
complex topic on its own too, because like you can't just have people punching each other. It's like the difference between like movies like the Bourne Identity, which are known to have like very fast cuts. You've probably also kind of heard about this, like Bourne Identity, the cinematography of like the
mm-hmm.
fights, because
Of
Matt
course.
Damon is not like a martial artist himself. They have to compensate for it by using like very quick cuts, and that like kind of fakes the violence and the punches. Compare that to maybe like Hong Kongese cinema or even some anime actually.
Mm-hmm.
The fight scenes they are carefully choreographed with real martial artists beforehand as like reference points, so that when they kind of superimpose those martial arts and those poses and fight scenes onto like animated characters, it looks real and it's amazing because there are no cuts at all. I don't know if you remember, but like Avatar, there's like this one scene where I think Aang and Zuko are fighting in
Mm-hmm.
some sort of terrace or some sort of like front yard, and they play that entire fight scene. There's beautiful choreography, and something like the Born Identity could not even come close to that because
Mm-hmm.
the level of complexity and beauty and like history behind that Avatar scene is just so deep. It's not something you can just boil down into a bullet point as violence. And I would pay money to get into the minds of the execs who were around that table and like wonder like what they thought of Bezos just like saying this. Were they like, wow, Bezos is a genius? Because this author, I was just thinking like this could pass off as sarcasm the way he said, and off the top of his head displaying his characteristic ability to shift disciplines multiple times a day. Like, is this sarcasm? Because as an author, I feel like you should understand that this is not this is not very complicated at all. Like boiling down fight scenes, conflict into just violence, like that's not very hard, and it doesn't really give your executives any information to go off of.
Mm-hmm. I just searched up the Card Vonnegut storylines. This is awesome. I'm gonna probably look a little bit more into it. Listeners, if you guys want to look it up, it's very easy to understand once you look at a graph exactly what you're talking about. And I kind of see what you mean by School of Rock can be it's a Cinderella story. I see what you're saying, kind of. Totally agree with you. It's what Jeff Bezos is doing is what we all kind of do if we're just taking a crack at,
Oh,
if I ask someone who's not hasn't thought about it, the first, hey, what makes this show great? What do you think? What makes shows period great? Yeah, those are a couple of things that you would bring up. And for Jeff Bezos, I guess that's good enough because he knows he's gonna delegate the work. So he's gonna
yes.
get a writer or a group of writers and bring them in and say, look, that's all you have to do. But that's also kind of talking down to them. I would think the writers would have ideas. For executives, that looks like gold. You're like, oh, that's awesome. Everything that we want in a show is in 10 bullet points. Great. So we'll get a group of writers and they just have to meet those 10 bullet points. how hard can it be? And if you
Mm,
never write, if you never really work in the creative storytelling process, you don't really understand how difficult it is. A betrayal, kind of going back to
right.
Naruto,
Like, what does
you
that
know,
mean?
yeah, what does that mean? Betrayal in episode one, when Naruto is betrayed by was it a teacher, the guy who makes him
Yes.
steal the scroll. That betrayal holds no value. The value holds in his teacher Iruka sensei defending him realizing that there's someone who loves him, and then he fights back. And
Yep.
then halfway after, at the end of the original Naruto series, when spoiler alert, when his best friend betrays him, that means so much more, because you've spent years with these two characters. They have bond, they've become good friends, and now one is leaving the other. That betrayal versus the first episode betrayal, obviously not the same thing. So just saying betrayal, just saying violence means absolutely nothing. And a great thing you brought up Avatar, because it is a perfect example. They had the writers, writers and the animators, I believe. I
Hmm.
believe they took martial arts classes
Oh
so that
wow.
they would understand what's going on, understand how to write and animate these scenes. There's
Hmm.
a reason why those scenes and why the writing is so well in Avatar for a kids show, and it still holds up. It's no surprise. But for executives, for the big wigs in the offices, it's money. Period.
Yep.
There was a great TikTok that I saw where they explained that a lot of women-led movies were stopped because, if you remember the Catwoman movie and the Electro movie back in the day where there were really no superhero movies,
The
um,
Halle Berry one.
the Halle Berry one, and there was an Electro movie that was a Daredevil spin-off, the original Daredevil, the one with Ben Affleck. Those two movies
Oh.
bombed, and executives kind of saw that as, yeah, you can't really have a woman-led movie and make money off it. At the end of the day, they just care about the movie. They just care about the money that's coming in. Say what you will about the DC universe movies, as long as they make money, they're gonna keep pumping them. It doesn't matter if it's
Hmm.
the story lines up or not. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I actually am curious as to whether it's the capitalistic model can
Mm.
ever make like good art, or they are just different like axes. So
Mm.
it's the same way how like Amazon has not been able to make any good games, and I think it's because like their goal is making money, and I
Mm.
almost wonder if making good art is the antithesis to making a lot of money, because and I think this just shows like the arrogance of tech or like business in a way, where Amazon kind of is like, I would say it's a pretty unoriginal business. So much of its money is made just by copying products. And
Well, at the moment, yeah, I think in the beginning they sort of, I mean, they started selling. They had one product, books, and then I believe it was such a weird story where, not a weird story. It's actually kind of inspiring. Where, when Jeff Bezos wanted to expand, I hope I'm getting the story right. Where he emailed a bunch of randomly selected customers,
uh-huh,
and basically asked them, okay, what do you guys want us to sell? And they sort of gave a varied answer, and Jeff kind of took that and expanded that way, and it became the Amazon of today. In the beginning they had books, period, that's
right.
it. So I think in the beginning it was something unprecedented and it was brilliant. You can't deny that. At the moment, yeah.
So that I agree with. I wonder
Hmm.
if like, because in business you really want to find out what your customers want,
Hmm.
but in art, I don't know if you want to know, because
Sometimes, right, I understand,
yeah, I don't know if Da Vinci like asked his clients like, so Well, maybe I won't get into that. 'Cause, yeah, but like,
I agree with you though. I 100% agree with you.
yeah, I'll change my mind on this when Amazon comes out with a good game. But
And they can, and I think the
I don't know.
if you're chasing money, you can also make a good game. Assassin's Creed is the best example of it. Ubisoft is a gaming company I have very love hate relationship with, where the original Assassin's Creed game were pretty good, and then they were just really put out to make money, and at some point they kind of realized their mistake and they stopped doing yearly releases, and then the new ones are it doesn't have anything. It feels like it has nothing to do with the original AC games, and it's you got a lot of good games out of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you
Well, for me, that's
can.
questionable because I
Hmm.
am not a fan of Assassin's Creed. I think
Okay,
the experience of those games are kind of like cookie cutter.
that's true.
But that could be a debate for another time.
I think again, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in episode 2, that chasing perfection, it doesn't always pay. But when you reach it, when you have a Witcher, people forget the Witcher 3 is a monumental, critically acclaimed, everyone loves it game. Witcher 1 and 2, while they were good, they were universally loved. It took them 3 games for CD Projekt Red to honestly make the perfect game.
Yes, that is true. So that's an interesting one because The Witcher 3 had source material in the
Mm,
novels,
right, right, right.
and I think that helps a lot
Hmm.
because you don't have to come up with the original story.
Well,
Um,
the thing I do want to point out, the Witcher games are a sequel to the stories. You're partially right where they had all the characters and the world already from the books, but the storylines are all original. They really did come up with all the stories, and the writing team for the Witcher series 1, 2, 3, they're fantastic. They really are fantastic.
gotcha. Okay, yeah. So when Amazon is able to do that, then I
Yes,
will
right.
change my mind.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, but I think there's actually kind of inspiring point to all of this. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, if Bezos, like one of the richest, like most successful men or people in America, thinks this way, the rest of us, like if we have some taste, like we could make it. Because
Mm-hmm.
even he, like he has, it's obvious he has kind of not as much taste or like little taste. So
Well,
if you just have like a little sliver, you could be in that boardroom with him.
well, I think you can measure intellect in very different ways too. Einstein, I believe it's an Einstein quote that says, if you measure a fish by how much it can fly, yeah, it's a dumbass. But or I think it's actually no, it was you can't measure a
Albert
fish's
Einstein was like,
intellect.
"Yeah, it's a dumbass."
Yeah, he said that. I believe it's he said you can measure a fish's intellect by how much it can, if it can climb a tree or not, right? Jeff Bezos, I mean, you can think whatever. I think anyone can think whatever they want of him. He is a brilliant businessman and entrepreneur. Is he would he be a good screenwriter? Would he be a good showrunner? I don't know about that,
Yeah, but I
but
think he would like to think so.
well, right. I think when you're good, I mean, Jack Ma is another great example.
Oh,
Why don't we riffed
you're
about
right.
that
He's a
before?
living model. Yes, he's a living example.
Anyway, great find, great find.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris, again.
Yes. Thank you, Chris, because it actually gives us the perfect segue.
Oh, before we
As
do the
yeah.
segue, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention it is my sister's birthday, and on the day of this recording,
Oh,
6/21. I just want to give a little shout out. Happy birthday, little sis.
wow! Happy
Uh,
birthday.
Yeah, I don't think she's gonna listen. I'm gonna just send her this little clip and say, "Yeah, happy birthday." Uh,
Happy birthday. You have
but
you have an okay brother.
yeah.
He's hard to be with sometimes, but
Yeah, but anyway, the
no, I'm just
segue.
kidding.
What, John? What is this segue?
Yes, so perfect segue. As we all know, Jeff
Hmm.
Bezos is now divorced or getting divorced
Which
from
means he was married.
which means this man was married.
Uh,
And that brings us to the topic of this
yes,
podcast,
sir.
which is marriage.
Right.
Which is marriage. So if you did not know already, Abs is a married man, as am I,
And as a John.
and I thought it would be an excellent discussion if we talk about marriage,
Hmm.
especially considering that I would say relative to other people of our generation, maybe not to our parents, but to in the modern first world era, we married pretty early.
Yeah.
I got married at 27.
Same here. I want to say I was 27 as well. This was November of 2020. I
Yeah,
think you were December of 2020. Is that correct?
December of 2020. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. Very, I mean, it's very recent to now. This is June of 2021. So we are still, I think, considered newlyweds. I think we're both going haven't done our big celebration because of COVID. I think we're both saving it. But
Yeah, yeah.
still, in
COVID
on
has definitely
paper,
thrown a
yeah,
wrench.
exactly. On paper, on living, we are both newlyweds.
Yeah, and just to add to that, giving a stat, so the 2020 average age of marriage
Hmm.
for female participants of a study was 31. For male was
Jeez.
33. So yeah, so for males, we're definitely very early, and it's interesting because the average age of marriage has been steadily increasing
I
with
didn't know it
time
was that
by a lot.
high. I thought it
Yeah,
would
yeah,
be 29, 30, maybe. Wow. I should also mention I think our partners are around our same age as well. It's not like they're in their 30s.
yeah.
Should say.
How old is your wife?
I believe 26. I Am I wrong? No, I'm 27, 26. I forget sometimes.
Yeah, my wife is also 1 year younger than me, so
Yeah, it's 1 year. Yeah.
yeah, same here.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot younger than I expected. The average age is higher than I expected. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because, especially right now, I think getting married young is actually kind of counter to where our society is moving, as we can see from the
Mm,
median
mm,
marriage age. Like, I mean, in terms of dating, just dating multiple people before you get married, that's kind of seen as common now. And
yeah.
also the access with like dating apps is
Hmm.
the landscape is just much different. So I kind of just wanted to talk to you about like the current state of dating and I mean, how did you get married? I feel like most people today they have so many doubts about marriage, and I can
Hmm.
just like
Hmm.
start saying even like some of the doubts that I had, or even
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I agree. I agree.
yeah, like getting married. Like, did you have doubts?
100%, man. I think I speak for both of us. I know we spoke in length about dating in general because we both kind of started around the same time. I know I started dating in for real. And when I say dating, I mean like actually seeking someone on either an app or in person, and then going out to date and you meet them for the first time in the date, not necessarily, or you know someone and then you date them. That was for me post college, coming back to the city, downloading apps, and then kind of venturing out. And oh my god, that was such a it's so wild because there's so much choice. And from the guy's side, it always felt like you had to give out multiple conversations, and then 10 of them kind of stick, and out of that 10, maybe maybe 5 of them kind of respond well, and then out of 5 of them, maybe 1 of
Oh
them
yeah.
are willing to go out on a date, and then that's already you don't know if most are not gonna produce a second date, or a second or third. Most are not gonna bloom into a relationship, and it can be very frustrating. I think for women, especially in the city, because of they have a lot more choices, they have more criteria, and they will, if one, even one criteria is not met, they will they're sooner to write the guys off. At least that's how I felt. But as I was getting more experience and a little bit older, at least with the dating, it felt more confident. But even then, with the people I was going on date with, you always wondered, what is the feeling I'm chasing? Because you never know until you find the right person what that feeling feels like. I know that's such a weird thing to say, but until I met my partner, until I started dating her, I had no idea. I had zero idea how I was supposed to feel. The sureness that comes with a partner that you're in alignment with in terms of future and what you want, and what you guys want as partners. It's it's hard to describe without actually meeting them. And there's also the question of how much of it should feel natural and how much of it should be effort. A lot of people now, I think, they think of it as, oh, it should feel completely natural with the someone, and if it doesn't, I'm going to break it off. I think people kind of forget that relationships are mostly hard work. That honeymoon phase, that feeling of, oh, I'm in love with this person, yeah, that will run out. That will run out, and you have to work really hard to find even a deeper love. And that's when you really know, I think, oh, this is the person I want to be with. That initial love, the initial couple of loves, in my opinion, are all red herrings. The love that kind of sprouts from the hard work and finding a life together, I think that's super, that's more important.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on. Like that's money right there. Like quote that, frame it seriously, because if there's like one lesson from all of this that you can take away, it's that
Hmm.
yeah, relationships are a lot of work, and
Yeah, yeah.
love is not really. I wouldn't say love is exactly something that like comes to you. It's more of something
Hmm.
you choose. So
I
there's a
like that.
lot
Mm.
of active work to create love. It's not just something that like a shooting star that kind of like comes down and yeah, it's not like gamma ray and it comes down and gives you superpowers or something. Like you
Hmm.
really have to nurture that yourself with your partner. And on Reddit, something very common I see in these kind of like threads there, and there's so many, and there's so many. I feel like one of the biggest questions in your life, right? It's gonna be, should I get married to this person?
Right,
Is this
right.
person right for me?
Hmm.
Like, should I spend the rest of my life with this person for good reason? Because the rest of your life is a very long time.
Hmm.
Um, and you don't go into a marriage expecting to get divorced. And
Hmm.
they'll ask, like, on Reddit, I have like these doubts about this person. Like, sometimes I feel like we don't really match on this. Like, and sometimes I don't feel like super attracted to them. And like, I pick at their flaws. Like, should I still marry this person? And
Hmm.
I actually very commonly see it's usually like the top comment, this kind of phrase, which is, if you have doubt, don't. And
Ah.
I don't know
Hmm.
about that actually. I don't know
Yeah.
because like any other important decision in your life, there's always going to be some hesitation. Like if, for example, like if you were to move, let's say we live in New York, so I'll just use New York.
Hmm.
Let's say you were to move from New York to California, and there's all these great points about why you should do it, you're still going to have hesitation because it is
Hmm.
an important decision to you. And I think marriage is the same way. Like if you were totally sure that you should marry them and you did not have doubts at all, I feel like that might call for some. Yeah, there's something that you'd have to look into there, like whether maybe they're like just crazy rich or something, or like somehow they are just like fills all of your boxes. Like if after a long term relationship, I feel like there should be some things that you don't completely like about them, but you choose to almost like compromise, and that compromise I think is what love is. It's not what you like them for. It's like what you love them for, despite these things that you don't like. It's like you like them, you love them so much that you're willing to love them, even though they have these things that do bother you sometimes. And so I don't know if you have thoughts to this, but
Yeah,
so if you do, I actually did want to, because I feel like we're covering so much, and I think
I
there's
know.
actually a
Yeah.
lot that we could be sharing. I don't, yeah, I don't know. Like this, there's just so much. Like even with the dating part, I just wanted to ask you before, like, do you think dating is harder for guys than like for men than women
Mm,
right now, and like what can men be doing? Because I feel like there's it's a very hard environment out there. Some like you said it before, like girls, they have many options. They can have tough criteria. But before
hmm.
that, I just wanted to ask if you had any thoughts on what we were talking about before.
The doubts. Yeah, I think it varies varies with people's varies by people and how the temperament you have, how you kind of see things, and how you what you expect. I'll give an example with myself and my wife. My wife is a doubtful person by more doubtful person by nature, so I think she shared more doubts with me in while we were planning the marriage, versus
If
me.
I was her, I'd have doubts too.
How long did it take you to bring that up?
I was waiting for it. This whole podcast.
This is the entire podcast was created for that one joke. um I'm glad it landed. No, it's true. I think for me, I'm a very
Humor, ladies and gentlemen. With just Jeff Bezos. That's humor right there.
that's the eighth
Take
foot.
notes. Take some notes.
Also a little bit betrayal there as well, so
Ooh,
I think that's I
you're
think that's
oh, this is a master class right here.
yeah, Jeff Bezos, take notes. But anyway, I think a doubt is it's an active ingredient in a relationship, but it has to be, I think, healthy doubt. I think there's like unhealthy doubts where a
True, true, true.
very classic example is, if my partner is being abusive, I know that's I have doubts about that. That's a clear cut thing. There are other things like you kind of mentioned, things you kind of compromise on. Those doubts are sort of, you have to figure them out yourself. You know, I think everyone's relationship, and this is not just romantic ones, platonic relationships as well. Like me and you, John. I don't think I don't think we would be friends if we agreed on everything. I think there are a ton of things we disagree on, but the things we disagree on are the ones that make this relationship interesting, and the things we do and things we disagree on, the same thing. uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think everyone has those little characteristics where if you guys agree on it, you're prone to be friends for longer, and then there are things that if you disagree on it, you're kind of in a weird logic, you're prone to be more friendly toward each other. I think the fact that we disagree on Attack on Titan, that's an anime, we have very different opinions on it, but I think it's fun. I don't mind that. I kind of think
I mind.
your
I definitely mind.
you do. I think your reasons are valid. I don't think you have a stupid reasons for those. You have a very interesting
Whoa,
reasoning
whoa,
behind it.
whoa. Let's
And
not use the S word here.
yes, yes. But yeah, it's such a weird question. How do you deal with doubt? It's such a weird question to answer without context. It has. you have to put context on what is the doubt, where is the doubt stemming from, what are you willing to work through, what are you willing to, because sometimes the doubt is also irrational. Sometimes the doubt is coming from a selfish place and it's not warranted. And you have to sort of look into that and say, okay, am I willing to work on myself for this relationship? Am I willing to work on the relationship for its future? And those are the kind of questions that two people need to answer for for the relationship to thrive, essentially.
Hmm.
And for marriage, those doubts are even multiplied because you look at it as, am I going to have those doubts after the marriage? Are these going to just magically go away after we get married? After we get married, what are we leaving behind? Those doubts are, oh boy, I mean, they're always going to, I think, in some part stay with you. But if the relationship is right and you're putting work on it and you guys are genuinely happy with each other, those don't seem like doubts anymore. Those just seem like thoughts that once occurred and that will come up, but I wouldn't call them doubts anymore. I think one of the big thing that I personally, were thinking about was, man, I'm gonna lose so much freedom. I'm gonna miss.
Oh,
I don't know if I miss dating. Honestly, I don't think my mentality is right for how one would date in this current world. I think in current world, for guys at least, it's a numbers game. The more you talk to women, the more women you talk to, the better chance you have. I can't do that. I'm very, if I'm talking seriously to one woman, I really can't speak to someone else seriously. Just the disconnect just seems very uncomfortable for me. So I know I don't miss that, but I thought I would be missing a lot of at least I perceived it as a loss of freedom, a loss of my own free time. With the marriage comes in-laws and a lot of that I was kind of dreading. But now that I'm living in it, and it's been less than a year, of course, but I have to say, I think I'm much better off for it. I'm a better person. And that's not necessarily because of the marriage. I think that's because of who I'm with. And that has made that has made my relationship with my wife richer. So yeah, that's I would say I took the leap of faith and it has worked out. But
yeah.
that doubt, I don't think anyone can completely erase all doubts before marriage.
Yes, you're right. And so the doubt that you brought up with freedom,
Yeah,
I think that is a extremely prevalent one, especially for guys like us with
yeah.
many options. We just have infinite options. Like we could have anyone. So for us especially, like we're definitely making a sacrifice there. So I'm just kidding. But yes, definitely. I think there is kind of like a biological aspect to it as well. Just the
Hmm.
way guys
Hmm.
reproduce, we are kind of shooting our fluids out of our body, and we do not become pregnant. So I think it kind of makes sense for us to just biologically try to inseminate as much as possible. Whereas
Hmm.
the reproduction strategy for a woman is probably different because they can only be pregnant with one child at one time. So they really do have to kind of be picky with whose child they harbor.
I do think this is going to be a short digression because I think we'll do on dating. I think we should do separate episodes because that's a whole beast. But I do think because of empowerment, women are. I think the average age of the marriage is
Yes,
has increased for both sides because I think
yes,
women are also valuing their careers more, so they're willing to wait, and they're also in the dating pool a little bit longer. The stigma behind having a single partner has diminished for I think women and for the better, so that they are in the dating pool. They can kind of look around a little bit more, just like guys. I think the biggest difference is the biological dimorphism, where they have a biological clock where they have a shorter period of time where they can get pregnant,
Hmm.
and I think that's the one thing that will always kind of be there unless we have a big scientific breakthrough. Women have, at least the stats have shown, they're exercising more freedom in terms of dating and choosing their man, and I think that's great.
Oh yeah, definitely, totally. With that, I'm totally for women's rights. Just I don't know if like these biological kind of structures in our brain, like the way we're
Mm.
wired, these evolutionary. I don't know if
Hmm. Hmm.
like recent kind of laws helping kind of even out the playing field is enough to kind of offset millions of years of evolution. But just
Mm.
to kind of go off of that, I'm definitely with you. I also thought about like whether my freedom would be decreased because
Right.
by marrying, you are you don't marry just a person. Even though a lot of people would like to think so, like a marriage is just a union between two people. Very often, whether you like it or not, it is a union of families, and you
Right.
are marrying their families as well. And with that, you take responsibility for their families. Like usually, the best unions are where you and your in-laws get along well, because if you don't, there's just going to be a lot of conflict, right? Like your in-laws
Hmm.
are important people to your spouse, so of course it would be best if you all got along. And actually, and the freedom thing is also brought up a lot on Reddit. Like, oh, I'm kind of scared that I'm going to lose my freedom. And one kind of idea or like model that I've kind of thought about, and I think it's helped me too, is to know whether this is the right person or not,
Hmm.
is spending time with this person compared to spending time alone. So is
Mm.
is spending time with this person like an upgrade over you just spending time alone?
Hmm.
And if it is, if it's just like spending time alone but better, then I think you have something pretty good there. Like that's very worth like kind of going deeper on,
Hmm.
because that's not common. And I think COVID has actually kind of brought up that a lot. Like there's been a lot of
Right.
people who were,
You're
because
forced
of
to
COVID, they're
spend time.
forced to spend time together, and they realize that their relationships actually don't work,
Right.
because after spending more time together, they realize like, oh, I can't really stand this person all the time. Maybe like in small bouts, but not the entire time.
Hmm.
And I think just going back to when you said like the feeling, or like how you know like that feeling, I think if there is like a few aspects to it, I think one major aspect is like, can you see yourself just spending a lot of time with this person
Hmm.
alone? And is that like nice to you? Like, do you enjoy that?
Oh my God, John. I've never, I guess, verbalized that, but that's so true. I think spending time, and I would even elevate that a little bit higher, where you say, well, is spending time with her also better than spending time with the people you most spend time with? And for me, it would be you and my other guy friends, because I love spending time with you guys. And on my free time is either spending time with myself or sort of just spending time with you guys, or I guess those little times where I'm going to the gym. And even then, I was going to gym with our friends and etc. etc. And yeah, it seems such a simple thing when you write it or when you think about it, but it's such an important thing where if you don't if you don't value the most trivial aspect of domestic living, domestic spending time, yeah, if you don't like that, it's not good. That's one thing I think I really valued with my wife, at least. I never, again, never verbalized it, never thought about it concretely, but you're so right. The one thing that I looked for when I had my doubts was, is this person helping me become a better person? At least for me, I'm a very on a very innate level, I can be very lazy, I can be very unmotivated, and even with you guys, I am looking for motivation. It's a very selfish thing, but it's kind of true. I look for the people that I want to keep around me are people that actively push me. When we were talking about doing podcasting, I was saying a lot of things. I was recording by myself, but I wasn't really publishing anything. And you were the one who actually invited me out, and we recorded our first one. And you made that push, and I really enjoyed that. I saw that as, oh man, this guy is being serious about it. I should put effort as well, and that pushed me. It took a year longer, but hey, yeah, we're here. And with my wife.
Hotel Pennsylvania was not fully open during COVID, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's our office. Yeah.
So yeah, that was where we recorded our inaugural episode, the one that we never released, and perhaps we will release at some point, but the lost episode will stay lost at the moment. But yeah, with Farhana, my wife, I asked myself, is she making me a better person? Is she pushing
Hmm.
me to be better than who I am? And she was. I think she's a very no nonsense. You met her, where she's a no nonsense person. She is, well, if you're not gonna be your best version, I'm gonna leave you. And I kind of respond to that. I respond to that sort of trial by fire. And it also has to work vice versa. You can't be just the sole project of your partner either. I, it's tough. It's I can't say on podcast that she has flaws. I can't just come out and say that. So she doesn't. She's a perfect person. But if I if I can find ways where I can make things better, or I can make her just a teeny bit better than who she was the day before, and I believe I am doing that, that's to me one of the key aspects of being a great partner. And those things kind of just build on that foundation. Because if you're making each other better, you're becoming better partners for each other, and again, making that relationship richer, and those doubts sort of become idle thoughts.
Yep. Hmm. That's fascinating. I think I feel the same way
Hmm.
with my wife, Alicia. So I also feel that we kind of push each other to become better. So
Hmm.
some activities we do together, we work out together,
Hmm.
we go climbing together. In addition to that, I think another aspect that I thought like really told me like this was the right thing to do is that we both want what's best for each other.
Yeah.
And like we want to do what makes the other person happy. And I think if you have that, then that also goes a long way. There's probably one more thing that I would add is like how you yeah like how do you know? I guess that can be
Hmm.
something we go into like how do you
Yeah.
know that you should marry this person? And I think for me it's probably like what I said before about being willing to like look past the doubts. So like you love them in spite of
Right.
those doubts. The second thing is probably like you work to make each other like happier. That's like in your both of you's best interest.
Hmm.
And the third one is probably just seeing how you work through conflicts. I think that's a really
Yes,
big one.
I was
Yeah,
gonna bring that up. That was my next
yeah.
point. You're absolutely spot on. I think I spoke to Farhana about this so many times, and we still speak about this conflict. And I've spoken to you about this as well. Conflict resolution is far more important than actual conflicts. You can have 1,000 fights, it does not matter. How you resolve it and how you come off it is far more important than how many battles you're having. Sometimes having a battle, sometimes having conflict is healthy. Too much is unhealthy for sure, but having a good resolution system, working toward, and if you don't have that, if you don't have that, if you're working toward that, that is the best thing you can do, because that's going to be the one constant in the entire lifetime. You're going to be disagreeing on things, and that really, it does not matter how much you get along with someone. If you're with someone and you never argue, please email me.
Yeah.
because I want to write that's a Guinness Book of World Record type thing. You're always going to find disagreements, because not necessarily because you disagree on it. It may be because one person is having a bad day.
Yep.
It's because one person just is in a bad mood. It just happens. So keeping a cool head and resolving it, I think one good advice that I've heard is, during arguments, find a calm moment where you can hold each other's hands, and just to reinforce the idea that you guys are on the same team. One thing that you mentioned, that you and your partner, you guys want each other to be genuinely happy. You want the best for each other. That is such an underrated point that people sometimes forget in this crazy isolated dating. Sometimes can feel isolated, where you're just looking out for yourself. So I don't blame people
Yeah.
for just looking out for themselves, really. So when you find someone where the other person genuinely just wants the best for you, man, you hold on to that. And if you don't already do that for them, you should learn it, because that's rare. Having the ability to genuinely want the best for them is rare, John.
Yeah.
um
Going back to what you said about the conflicts, like
yeah.
when you said too much conflict is bad. So
Mhm.
yes, I agree. Especially when that the number of arguments and the type of arguments you're having are not related to like the actual
Ah,
issue.
yes.
So when
Yes.
when they're just in a vehicle for them to like vent or take their anger out at you.
Hmm.
So so what you said about having both people in this on the same side, right? So important. A lot of relationships that I see, they're quite like adversarial actually,
Yeah.
where one person will do something to the other person, like maybe insult them or something. It could be an accident, and the other person, instead of kind of prioritizing the other person's happiness, they prioritize like an eye for an eye. Oh,
Right,
like
right.
they did that to
Yeah.
me. I need to get even, and I need to do this to get even. And that's how you just go into a spiral of conflicts that are never resolved.
Yep.
And when you do that, you fall into the trap of like this. This is how you get couples who, if they go to therapy or they talk to a friend and they start bringing up like arguments from like 4 years back, and they'll remember like the exact details. They remember the time of day, like the where they were having that argument, and that's because they haven't forgotten, because
Hmm.
they haven't forgiven.
Hmm.
They haven't forgiven each other. They're still holding on to the angst from that
Hmm.
fight.
And it's, yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know a perfect relationship isn't one that's devoid of these things.
Yes.
It's perfect relationship is what you work through those things. I'll say, like, my relation, we were earlier in our relationship, we were a little bit like that, where we weren't completely at each other's throats, but we would bring up previous things, and it's sometimes you don't even realize the effect of it until you sort of sit down and listen to your partner, where one of us did have to kind of say, look, when you bring up previous things, or when you're counting the affections, or, oh, you did this but I did this, you have to kind of sit down and say, look, this is not a competition. It's it's a
Mm.
there should be an effort, there should be an equal amount of effort, for sure, but it should be about, we're on the same team. If there's a conflict, we work on it together. And of course, emotions are going to be high when conflicts are coming up. It's good to try to keep that emotion down, but even if those emotions flare up and things are being said, it's also good to step back, take some space, take some time, and then come back and talk about it. That resolution part is something that is missed earlier on, and it's just so important to just work on it.
So I guess coming from here, I think we're both aware of like what the red pill community is and like
Yes.
what they stand for. And just to give a short summary, I guess the red pill community, it's kind of this reference to the Matrix, where
Mm.
Morpheus kind of reveals both hands, and in one hand is the blue pill, and in the other hand is the red pill, and he offers these to Keanu Reeves, and he tells Keanu, if you pick the blue pill, you go back into the Matrix and you forgot any of this happened. Basically, you go back to not understanding the world as it actually is, the reality. If you take the red pill, then you understand how the world actually works, and we're all just living in a simulation. And this community, the red pillars, they hearken themselves to having taken the red pill because they see themselves as understanding how the world actually works. And when they say that, they refer to the fact that the relationship between men and women is almost like cursed to be exploitative, where the best thing for men to do is, like, for example, not get married, to not really try to have like a deep relationship with a woman. So I guess this kind of runs almost 100% counter. It's like a total 180 from like what we have done actually, which is like
Hmm.
get married early. Like to them, we're like whipped. We're like the whipped of the whippedest.
Hmm.
So do you have any thoughts on that and like how you see the red pill community?
I think for the most part, I can extend some sort of sympathy because it can be frustrating. There are some unfair things that I've faced during the dating scene. While it
Yeah,
was unfair to me, I never felt like it was injustice, if that makes sense. There were things that sort of I was written off for that I was like, oh man, that sucks. It's not something that I think is indicative of myself. But I never faulted the other side. I never faulted the women for being written off. But I can see how easy it is
yeah,
because even us sometimes we're like, man, if we had it easier, if women gave us a little bit more of a shot in the beginning when we were dating. But at least for us, we quickly realized, yeah, that's not going to get me anywhere. Blaming women is not going to get me better at dating, period. There are many things that you and I have characteristically that make us better and that make us worse in the dating pool, and that's just how it is. And the best thing we can do is work on our strengths and try to minimize our weaknesses so we get a foot on the door and then we put on our charms. That's how I assume that's how we both ended up with our partners. For the red pill community, it's just internalizing all that hatred and frustrations and putting it out on, at least in my opinion, the
it's like a
easiest
scapegoat.
target. Yeah, the
Yes.
scapegoat. Yeah. Are there women who are unfair? Absolutely. For sure. Are there people who are writing good men off for bad reasons? Sure. But there's also a lot of that happening from our side as well.
Yes.
I'm sure in during our dating we definitely said no to some people that we would be great, would get along with. But that's our preference. That's how it is, and it's such a weird thing where I
Yes.
want them
We said
to.
no to many women. Scores of women.
Oh,
Just
John,
adding that in there.
we gotta
As
be
in I.
we
Yeah.
gotta be gentlemen now. We can't. We have to be humble. But yeah, it's I want the people in the red pill community to get happiness. I want them to realize that there's the red pill community. There is an offshoot of it called MGTOW. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yes.
MGTOW,
Yes.
men going their own way, and I found that to be an extremely weird, you may even call it vile part of the red pill community. And for the listener, is if you Google it, you MGTOW, you kind of see what I'm talking about, where it's just men realizing that getting married and getting cuffed is the worst thing possible because women are this singularly defined villainous sex. And it's such a it it's tough to defend something like that because there's not a single characteristic that is defined, that is just defined because we are male or we are female. The old stereotypes of, women make the better parent, that's not always true either. There are many single
Right.
fathers who are
Right.
kicking ass, and those stereotypes, it's the same thing as saying all women will just get married to you for the money, and they will leave you when you're older, and they will just or they're fit they're I think they have a lot more callous terms, but they basically just say, when the women are young, they will have their way with many men, and then when they're used up, excuse my language, they will then find a beta male
I mean,
with
this is like
money.
verbatim from
Yeah, these
the
are
community,
these are
so
almost verbatim. They'll find a beta male with money and they'll settle. And first of all, if a girl is doing that, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's how you know what
because
I'm saying?
guys do,
Guys do that
because
as
yes,
well.
men will do, yeah. So the funny thing is, like, the red pill community, there is basically like a counterpart to this for
Right.
like women as well.
Hmm. In fact, I believe it started. So the incel community, the incel is the involuntary celibate community, which is now predominantly men. I I read somewhere that it was actually started by females who had trouble finding a partner,
Interesting, very
and
fascinating.
I could be I believe I saw it in a documentary, which is, again, what a fascinating way. I do think the red pill community and all these community may have started with not necessarily good intentions, but with a better intentions than what it is now. Sometimes some of these communities are good because you want to air out some of those frustrations and hear the good advice. Now it has been bastardized where, it's just the blame women part is so vocalized, and that is not doing anything to actually improve the people who are seeking the help.
Hmm.
We've both been frustrated. I can't say for you. You're a handsome man. I
No,
don't think
no,
you've had any problem.
I actually, yeah, really wanted to get into that actually, because I'm with you when you said sympathy, a hundred
Hmm.
percent, 100%. Like, dating is really tough,
Of course, for
and
both sides, by the way.
oh yes, definitely.
Hmm.
Dating is very tough, and you're gonna run into a lot of, and because it runs so close to the heart, like dating
Yes.
requires you to be so vulnerable. In order for it to actually work, for dating to actually work, you have to be vulnerable. You
Mm.
have to be willing to put your heart on the line for you to actually expect someone else to do the same. You really do. And when you do that, naturally, you're going to get your heart broken.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and for some such an emotional event like that, like getting your heart broken, people are going to have very different reactions. And I think the Red Pill community is an extension of that, where people have been very frustrated and they don't see any sort of like success or like light at the end of the tunnel. And I think I very easily could have just gone down that same path. Like, this is
Mm.
this is not exclusive to, and incels, they're very popular now in the news, and I think the general kind of
Right.
mindset around it is like, oh, these people who we can't possibly understand, like they're just too far
Right.
gone. But
Right.
no, 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 no. Like these people are our neighbors. Like, we have to seek to understand like the struggle that they're going through and see if there is a solution. Because I agree, dating is very tough, and I think OkCupid, which is a very popular dating app, they
Hmm.
did a study actually, which found that they compared basically the way men saw female attraction versus the way like
Mm.
women saw like male attraction, male attractiveness, and for men, the way they kind of looked at female attraction is, I think it followed the bell curve. This was like the result of their study. It followed the
Hmm.
bell curve. Like, most people, as we expect, are average looking, and then there are very few people on each side of the bell curve that are either very not pleasant looking or extremely attractive. This
Uh,
this sort of which makes sense. Like, it follows the bell
hmm.
curve, like many things in nature kind of do. But for females, it did not follow a bell curve at all,
Hmm.
and it basically came out to 80% of men for females were below average,
Right.
which by itself doesn't really make sense. Like, how can 80% of people be below average? But this is kind of how women see men,
Hmm.
interestingly enough. So, so on one side, like, the takeaway I get from this is that yes, dating is very hard for men. On the other hand, from my personal experience, I feel like there are a lot of things that men could be doing to increase their chances by a lot, like exponentially, that they are not doing.
Hmm.
And I think this could be something for like the next episode or something because it's such a big topic.
Yeah,
It's
I
such a huge
agree.
topic. Yeah.
I agree. I think that's one of those. We're definitely going to do a deep dive on just dating in general. I think it's just it's such a fascinating thing. While we're still young, I think we should definitely dive into it. I
Yeah,
think
while
once
we're
we're
still in the single digit episodes
yes,
and
yeah,
not talk about hip replacements.
yes, yeah, yeah. Episode 100. How we got a discount on our hip flip. Anyway, yeah, man. The sympathy part and understanding part because they're in the media so much. Once you get that mainstream treatment, you are labeled as just everyone's just labeled as something,
Yeah,
the,
like untouchable or something. Like
yeah,
it reminds.
exactly.
Yeah,
Right, you're absolutely right, the untouchable. Yeah, the OkCupid thing I think reminded me of they have other tenets where they say, if you the only the top eight nines will date each other, and you have to, if you're like if as a male, if you're under I think 7 or 6, you have to settle for like the women equivalent of fours and threes. And if you just look out in the world, that's just not true. There are people of all, and first of all, ratings are so arbitrary in the first place. A one person's 10 is another person's 1.
exactly.
It's such a the beauty standards are so wildly varied, so that doesn't make sense. But to their own self, these are anecdotes that they're following up on. And if you go deep into it, you'll find stats that will support any narratives anyway. So it's kind of tough. But in the crux of it, if you're blaming anybody but yourself on in this particular issue, you're not really getting better. And like you said, there are many things a man can do to improve their odds exponentially.
So many,
Yeah,
so
you and
many.
I have gone through this, so I will say, in terms of objectiveness, you are okay. I'll say I'm more handsome, but you have more characteristic that an average female would be looking out for. You are a good looking cat, but there are other things you can do to increase your odds of being looked at, being swiped right on. And then there's the aspect of how you talk to them, and
That's
all
huge,
those
by the
things
way.
can
That's
be, yeah, all
huge.
absolutely huge. All those things can be improved upon when you ask. And again, we'll kind of do a deeper dive on a different episode. When you ask for the number, how soon can you, all those things you can improve on, and you can get better on and increase your chance drastically higher. And those superficial things that you think are important, at the end of the day, once you get far enough, they become worthless. Of course, the sex appeal and how you're physical attraction is a huge thing, but that emotional connection bleeds into it so much that I think those superficial things, honestly, they only last a few months.
Agreed. If
Um,
even, if
if
even,
even,
I don't
I
even know.
agree.
Yeah, there's so much depth to it, and
Hmm.
the posts that I see on the Red Pill community when I do browse it,
Hmm.
it doesn't even scratch the surface. Like most people are way too focused on the physical attraction, as you're saying. Like
Right.
they're trying to do something called like looks maxing.
Yes,
That's a
yes,
term
yes.
they
Looks
use,
maxing.
which
Yep.
is it's exactly what the term sounds like. They try to max out their physical traits, like by going to the gym, working out, getting like a ripped body, to
Which
in
isn't on just paper. That's not a bad advice.
yes,
You should,
yes,
everyone should get a good
you
healthy
should be healthy,
yeah,
but past healthy, like you do not need Arnold
right.
Schwarzenegger level, um, or Arnold Schwarzenegger level muscles to attract a girl. Like that is
Right.
totally unnecessary, and we can do a master class on this. Abs and I can do a master class on this next episode. So
A
Bezos,
master class.
Jeff Bezos, now that you're on the market again, you can tune in so we can kind of help our buddy here too.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, you know what? You're right. One of the next episodes we will do. Yeah, if you're single, come tune in. And you know what? We'll bring some female perspective, perhaps.
Interesting,
Maybe a
interesting.
guest, where we could kind of get a little bit of tit for tat. I don't know. Stay tuned. That's a little bit of a teaser, if you will. But anyway, back to I think
Yes.
one thing you did ask, how do you know, the big question? I'm
Hmm.
with this person. How do you know, right? John, do you want
Yeah.
to say anything about that?
Yeah. So I think I'm just gonna go back to the three aspects. Like
Mm-hmm.
these are just so strong. Like if there's other doubts, like if you have these three, you're probably gonna do a good job of making it. Like
Mm-hmm.
so, the first one of them being you two actually prioritize each other's happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually want that other person to be happy, and the other person wants you to be happy. And this actually helps you avoid a lot of obstacles because
Mm-hmm.
you guys are not like out at each other's throats. You're not adversarial. You want to help each other. And when you think of future plans, you consider not how is this going to affect me, but you naturally think how is this going to affect me and my partner, and you almost become like a unit.
100%.
So if you can feel that way about the other person, that's a very good sign. Another thing is if you feel like spending time with that person is basically like spending time alone, but just better. So it's like an upgrade over equilibrium. That's huge because you're going to be spending a lot of time with this person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a great way to kind of test this is trips. If you
Yeah.
can't live
Mm-hmm.
together already, I think you should live together before marriage
Mm-hmm.
for sure. I know that's not usually kind of accepted in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
religions. So, but if you can travel together, that is a great
Yeah.
sign because there's
Agreed.
so many kind of aspects of travel. You guys have to plan it. You have to agree to certain things. Like there might be things that you want to do that they don't want to do. So if you guys can come to compromises on that, that's a very good sign. So yeah, just being able to be alone with this person for long stretches of time.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think another thing is the way you communicate. So when you communicate and you resolve conflicts,
Yep.
are you able to do it in a peaceful manner, a peaceful and productive manner, where
Mm-hmm.
you guys are actually addressing the issue and you can both talk openly about how you're feeling about that issue. And if you can resolve conflicts in this way, then and you have all these three aspects, I would say that's a very good sign. And this might be a really good union because for me and my wife, I definitely needed we definitely had these three before we
Yeah.
got married, and I'm feeling very good about where we're at.
100%, 1,000% agreement on that. And those three things can come in varied ways, where in a conflict resolution may, as long as it's healthy, I think that's good. Sometimes a vent session is good. Sometimes I know I have pent up not aggression, but pent up frustrations, but talk it out. Like John said, communication is such a huge thing. If you're frustrated, say it out. Sometimes when I'm telling her one of my frustrations, I catch myself. I'm like, yeah, this isn't right. And I tell her that. I'm like, look, I'm frustrated. I don't know why. This is not right, but I'm frustrated. And then you work through it together. The first aspect, your team. If you have frustrations with the person, bring it up. If you have doubts, if you have things like, look, I'm feeling a little hurt by this one thing, maybe you didn't intend it, and then when you talk it out, they can say, look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And once you talk it out, once you clear miscommunication, you get somewhere. If you bottle it up, if you don't put it out there, then it's going to come out in a very weird, probably something that's not even related. You're washing dishes and something, you leave a wet sponge, you get, you just yell out,
Yeah.
you know. So it's good to communicate. And I have to emphasize that not every no one starts with all those three things just from the start. You work on it. You hopefully you have some semblance of those things, and then you work on it. You get better at it. You catch your faults. You catch the other person's faults, and hopefully they recognize it as well. And you work together on it. It's not a battle. It's not a war. You're not looking to win. Just conquering love together.
Yes. If there's one misconception, is just how much work a relationship needs.
Oh
It's a
boy,
lot of
yeah,
effort. Yes.
yeah. I think that's one of the earliest conversations I've had with Farhana, where I said, "Look, if you're not willing to put in effort, let's not do this." And early on, she's one of those people. She gave me a lot of early talks about her future. This is what I'm gonna do. I may not be in New York in the next 3 years. This, and that. She gave it to me from the get go, and that really worked for me because I want to know. I want to know all those details. I want to know that our future plans align. And so for my part, I said the one minimum thing I want in a starting relationship is effort. That's it. I want you to put in the work. If you have doubts, you voice it. If you have questions, you ask it. That's it. If you don't have that from the start, it's gonna be doomed.
Yeah. I totally agree. Do you remember like Farhana's kind of response to that actually?
Yeah, she agreed. I mean, if she didn't agree, we wouldn't be here. I think. Um, I think it's one of those things. You also have to work on the level of effort. I think that when you start dating, there's gonna be imbalances in everything. There's gonna be imbalances in who likes the other person more, and that shifts as the relationship goes. And you have to find ways to equilibrate that. There's gonna be imbalances in how much effort the other person is putting in. It's that all in the beginning is all rocky. Those things are being adjusted. These are two people with two different backgrounds, two different lives, two different families, friends, blah blah blah, coming together and making a life out of it. It's very difficult. So of course there are going to be imbalances, there are going to be obstacles. It's about the things that do work and the things that need work. And yeah, the things that need work need effort. Period.
Yes, period. Um, yeah, I think this was a great way to start this conversation because
Yeah.
I really emphasize on start because I feel like there's so much more that we can dive into. I mean, marriage it might be one of our longest like rituals ever for like mankind. So yeah, next episode, definitely stay tuned. Jeff
Hmm.
Bezos, if you're listening, stay tuned. We're gonna help you get back on the market.
We are
It's
gonna start with my researched topic that I have been saving. The epic Apple versus Fortnite. We are going to do a short summary on that.
okay. Yes,
Uh,
let's definitely do it.
because oh my, it's gonna amuse you, my brother. It's gonna be fun. So
Yeah, that episode's gonna be
yes, that
wild.
yeah. I of course we're gonna be continuing this and maybe do some dating, maybe have a guest or two. I don't know, but stay tuned for that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and what Jeff Bezos calls a cliffhanger is what we're going to do now.
Okay.
So thank you for listening, everyone.
Thank you guys.